So we already completed in our chapter 14 honor father and mother
Uh,
up to item, sorry here, up to item 5. Today should start on item 6. I'm sorry, you
eight.
no,
I
today
have
should no, today should start on item correct. Yes,
eight, right? Okay.
yes, 8. Item 8. It's just that I wanted to come back a little bit and see whoever not here last week to try to catch up a little bit on this in this chapter.
Mhm.
Honor father and mother is one of the Ten Commandments. It is interesting that it is the fourth of the commandments that follows a sequence. And if you follow the sequence, number one is, and I'm reading here, don't memorize those things, I'm sorry. I'm the Lord your God. You shall not have strange gods before me. Number two, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Number three, remember to keep holy the Lord's day, which is the Sabbath. Number four, honor your father and your mother. Number five, you shall not kill. Number six, you shall not commit adultery. Number seven, you shall not steal. Number eight, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Number nine, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Number 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods. You see a sequence over here that the first three commandments is a commandment towards God or towards the Creator. Okay, all the three of them. Okay, I am the Lord your God. You shall not take the name of the Lord in vain, and remember to keep holy the Lord's day. So the first three is a commitment, is a commandment towards the Creator. And all the other ones is a commitment towards the creation, towards ourselves, towards our relationship with one another, towards our relationship with our neighbors. And of those, that is to ourselves, to the creation, the very first one is honor your father and mother. So this sequence is not just by chance. You could not say, oh, it could pick up number 8 and put on top and number 1 and put on number 8. No, it follows a sequence. It is important that we pay attention to those details. So the first three is the Genesis of Genesis. It's everything. It's God. It's towards God. And we see also in the Spirit's book, everything starts with God. The very question is, what is God? And we see also in this book, the Gospel According to Spiritism, Kardec has the same care to start with the things that relates to God, to relates to the general laws, and follow start on chapter 11, and then on the relationship with ourselves. Also follow a logical, intelligent sequence. It's nothing just placed by chance. So this chapter here is extremely important, and you see over here is the first one is the genesis of the interrelationship amongst ourselves, the creation. The first three towards God and the rest towards us, our relationship, the way we interact. And always start with the genesis of this world with parents. So the necessity to honor father and mother is to respect this chronology, so to say, of events, in which we have to honor the base, the foundation. The first three, the great foundation, God. And then the foundations of ourselves, our fathers, our mothers, which is extremely important. And this is just a recap from last week, everything that we did. And we see here that Jesus many times returns to the basis of the foundation, okay? As we said, I have not come to derogate the law, but to reinforce it. So in every opportunity, Jesus would reinforce those laws. Of course, the laws that are divine, of divine nature, and not the laws that are man-made, the ones that we created for the necessity, right, of the times. Since it's man-made, it is imperfect as we are, and therefore it needs to be perfected as we perfect ourselves. But the ones who have, a divine origin, they are already perfect, and they should not, or they need not to be changed and must be followed. And one of them is honor your father and mother, to keep in sequence. So you need to go back to the foundations every once in a while. You have to go back to the first revelation, where we found the Ten Commandments. We might to go back to things of the past, but since Christ brings to us this whole complete package, all the divine laws are in his teachings. On 3 years of teaching, he put that the complete package in accordance with Spiritism of all the moral laws that we have to learn in order to find happiness to ourselves. And Kardec takes in the Gospel according to Spiritism all the moral teachings of Christ and puts in this book. What am I saying this? Do we have to go, because this question was placed to us before, do we have to go and read the first revelation? Do I have to go and read the Old Testament? Do I have to read other things? Well, it's always good to go back and review those foundations. Just like Jesus always come back to the divine laws, just like Jesus came back to this important commandment on a father and mother, it's always good to refer. It is some way that Kardec in this book makes references of the gospel. He cites John, he cites Matthew's, and he picks quotations for them. And then we can go back and review those quotations and expand on those quotations. The problem is when we sit on those foundations and don't move on, not understanding the foundations, the basis, are stepstones that allow us to build on top of it. And that's what generates progress. And that's how we are moving forward. And that's exactly what Kardec does in this book. He brings the foundation, makes citations of the first revelation, makes the citations of the teachings of Christ, and bring from the elevated spirits new teachings or ways of opening our ability to understand of the divine laws that are already there. So to return to look at the foundations, those is important, but we need to go forward. And in honor father and mother is exactly this commandment as well. We must always honor that foundation, that basis, that genesis, that generated us, that gave us the opportunity to be here, the opportunity to learn, to be talking, have this conversation right now. And those are father and mother. Regardless of what they have done, the mistakes that they perhaps have made, some I know I have made thousands of mistakes, trying my best to be the best possible parent. I know that I made a lot of mistakes, but we offer the opportunities for those individuals to come in and have an opportunity to better themselves. So we are in a sense that foundation that, oh, I'm sorry, parents are in that way, that foundation that the offsprings must honor, must respect, and use that foundation to develop themselves to become better, perhaps, and better than the foundation itself. It's very common and should be. In the law of progress, we should expect our offsprings to be better than us. And then when we return to that incarnation, learn from them and become perhaps better than mine, and following that sequence of evolutionary path, we better ourselves over and over again in multiple times. Okay. Any questions, any comments here? Not, let's start. Is that good size for you, Sarita?
Yes, it's okay.
Can you
Perfect.
see well?
Thank you. Yes, I see. Thank you. Okay. Corporeal kinship, spirit kinship. Number 8. Blood ties do not necessarily establish ties among spirits. The body proceeds from the body, but the spirit does not proceed from the spirit, because the spirit already existed before the formation of the body. Parents do not create the spirit of their children. They do nothing except furnish them with their corporeal, but it is their duty to aid their intellectual and moral development in order to help them progress. Spirits who incarnate in the same family, especially among close relatives, are most often sympathetic spirits connected by previous relationships that are expressed by their mutual affection during earthly life. Nevertheless, it may also happen that such spirits are complete strangers to one another, divided by past life antipathies that are now expressed as animosity to serve as a trial. True family ties are not therefore blood ties, but ties of sympathy and similarity of ideas that connect close relatives. Are most often sympathetic spirits, connected by previous relationships that are expressed by the mutual affection during earthly life. Nevertheless, it may also happen that such spirits are complete strangers to one another, divided by past life antipathies that are now expressed as animosity to serve as a trial. True family ties are not therefore blood ties, but ties of sympathy and similarity of ideas that connect spirits before, during, and after their incarnations. It thus follows that two individuals born from different parents may be more like brothers through their spirits than if they were brothers through blood. They may attract each other, search for each other, and feel happy together, whereas two brothers related by blood may repel each other, a fact attested to every day. This moral problem is one that only Spiritism can resolve by means of the purity of existences. Consequently, there are two types of families: families through spirit ties and families through corporeal ties. The former are permanent, are strengthened through purification, and are perpetuated in the spirit world through many migrations of the soul. The latter are fragile like matter itself, are extinguished over time and often dissolve morally, even in the current lifetime. This is what Jesus wanted to make understood by saying to his disciples, "Here are my mother and my brothers, that is, my family through the ties of the Spirit, because all who do the will of my Father who is in heaven are my brother, my sister, and my mother." His brother's hostility is clearly expressed in Mark's narrative, which states that their purpose was to take charge of him under the pretext that he had lost his mind. Upon being informed to their arrival and knowing their sentiments toward him, it was natural that Jesus, speaking from a spiritual standpoint, we refer to his disciples.
Disciples.
Okay, refer to his disciples as these are my true brothers. His mother was with his brothers, and thus Jesus generalizes his lesson, which in no way implies that he meant that his mother, according to the body, was nothing to him according to the spirit, and that he felt nothing but indifference toward her. His behavior on many other occasions proves quite the contrary.
Okay, thanks. Corporeal kingship and the spirit kingship. The spirit comes from the spirit, and the body comes from the body. One of my very favorite books, I think everybody has read, is the Prophet, right? Khalil Gibran, the Prophet. The passage when a woman asked to speak to them of children, right? And he says, your children are not your children. You are the sons and daughters of life, longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even your dreams. You may strive, not you may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, not tarries with yesterday. You are the bow for which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, and his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending be the archer's hands for the gladness. For even as he loves the arrows that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. I really enjoy this poem from Gibran, and I think explains with tremendous clarity what Jesus man means. You know, the spirit comes from the spirit, and the body comes from the body. Or flesh comes from flesh. And we see here in this passage that Kazakh tells us there is basically three kinds of unions in family in a household, so to say, you know, right? The most immediate family, parents, father, mother, and offsprings, sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters, the very basic nucleus of society, right? And of course, it expands into the aunts and uncles, grandparents, and nephews, and so forth and so on. But the very nucleus is this mother, father, and offsprings. And in it, of those spirits that are placed together, there's three possibilities basically. These are spirits that know one another, and in knowing one another, these are the spirits who have already ties of sympathy, of friendship, and come to support, to help one another, to make this reincarnation, this passage through this school, more pleasant, because it's always better to be with friends, to support one another to the difficulties that one another will face through this school time that is spent here. Or on the contrary, they may have ties of antipathy. They may not be very good friends. And they are placing together for the necessity of transforming that antipathy into sympathy in order to resolve the issues of the past, to harmonize themselves with the divine laws, which is of love. And another possibility is that they've never met before. The idea that every family is composed of individuals who already know one another as the Spanish spirit. It's not true. And Kardec put that very clear over here, saying that at times the son or the daughter that come into that new family have never had a relationship with that mother or with that father, but they have necessities in common. They have things in common that create the possibility of them being together. One can support, can help the other to overcome one or another problem. And it places over here that parents do not create the spirit for the, sorry, parents do not create the spirit of the children. They do nothing except furnish them with the corporeal envelope, but it's their duty to aid in their intellectual and moral development in order to help them to progress. Although this relationship may be one that is starting now, they have never, let's assume that I have never met my son or daughter in previous existence. It is the first time that we as a eternal spirit are meeting one another. It is still my duty to provide to them all the possibility of assisting them to develop themselves morally and intellectually. When we spoke last week of the meaning of honor, father and mother, we did speak that the meaning to honor is unestablished, is to honor that commitment that we made. Although we have never met before, we never had a relationship in previous existence before, in the spiritual world, prior to the reincarnation, in general, again, in the average, parents will have a meeting with their guardian angels of the individuals who are in charge of the reincarnation of that spirit, and parents will say, okay, we accept, you make the commitment to receive this spirit as a son or as a daughter, and we assume the responsibility to try to do our best, of course, inside of our possibilities, to educate that spirit morally and intellectually. Naturally, one can only give what one has. One can only teach what one knows, which places the responsibility of us to seek to educate ourselves morally and intellectually in order to pass it over to our children. We're never going to learn anything. We're never going to be able to pass to them everything because we don't have it. very often those spirits who come into our existence as a son or daughter, maybe already a lot more elevated than what we are. And very often as those spirits mature into the chronological age, get a little older, they're actually able to teach parents much more than parents can teach them, provided that the parents fulfill their duties of preparing that spirit to eventually be able to expose themselves with all of their advancement that they have conquered. It's not unusual that we will see in family that we can clearly see that sons and daughters are more evolved, um, especially morally, if not intellectually, very often both. But the parents carry that responsibility to prepare that spirit to be able to expose themselves clearly with that moral, in the moral values, especially. Um, see here. So again, so this the possibilities. We are one, the universal family, regardless of blood ties. The blood ties becomes necessary because that's again is the very genesis that allow us to extend ourselves beyond ourselves, teaching us the necessity to be less selfish, less prideful. At one point in our development, knowing as humans, we're pretty much like animals. Yes, each one of us for ourselves. I have to be strong. I have to take care of myself first, because if I don't, nobody will. I'll seek to overpower everyone else so I can get the best piece of the pie, and if not, I will starve. I have to be strong and beat up on the other guys, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to perpetuate my own genetic pool. I won't be able to mate. Then we start ourselves into family and we learn that because of the maternal paternal love, I have to protect my offspring. And you see that if we stay together, the chance of this offspring to survive is much greater. So we stop being like animals that we mate and then each one go to its own side. We unite ourselves in family. Now, father and mother, you be together for the necessity to protect, to provide for that offspring. So I no longer, it's true, very selfish, but now I'm sharing myself with the mother of my children and my children. And of course, the woman will unite with the father of the children in the same way to provide for them. We're already giving ourselves more. You're already putting our others in the first place, with being our offspring being more important than us. And we do see that in some species of animals as well. If anyone wants to bring that up, yes, we see that in some species of animals as well. But in human, this tie becomes stronger. And then we have there the opportunity to put others up above ourselves first in this very nucleus family. And it is the stepstone that allow us to go beyond ourselves, to put others above us, and go from the immediate family, develop into the family outside the nucleus, then uncles, nephews, nieces, and so forth and so on, and we establish clans, and then we go continue to developing that family and expanding until you reach the human family. But it starts with that nucleus, which makes it so important that we honor our father and mother as to maintain that nucleus that allow us to learn, to love beyond ourselves. And Christ say something interesting. Who is my brother? Who is my mother? And looking for those who are in there in the house, where he was teaching, looks to all of them and say, those who right here, those who do the will of my Father who is in heaven are my brother, my sisters, and my mother. Well, it is interesting that the blood family, the brothers and Mary, they did not enter. They were outside. It has a very important symbolic meaning where we're here. Just like in the parable of the two sons, the first son, he did not enter the house as well. He complained of the prodigal son who returned. He returns that the prodigal son was having all those privileges, but him, the first one, did not enter as well. So here the same thing, that the brothers of Jesus by blood, they did not enter, symbolize that they did not accept the lessons that Christ has to offer. They did not understand the teachings that Christ was offering. And that's why they will say that the Christ was going mad. And Jesus says, those who are here, those who are getting those lessons are indeed my brothers and sisters and mothers, because they are the one fulfilling the will of my Father. And it's also interesting that it says, my brother, my sisters, and mothers, as a way of removing the blood relationship, saying that being brother, sister, mother, father, it's all the same. Because as a spirit, there is not these titles that we have over here. There is a very beautiful message. The spirit honor you, I believe. No, spirit honor, no. It was not really spirit, it's incarnate honor. It wrote an excellent book in which it says that in our evolutionary path, one day is still incarnate on earth. We'll see all the elders, individuals as father and mothers. And we see all of individuals are around the same age as brothers and sisters. And we will see all the youngest ones as sons and daughters. Establish that relationship that even here incarnate on earth, that eventually you reach that level that the responsibility of honoring father and mother, you'll be extended to all of those who are able to teach, to provide to us. And we will assume the responsibility of sharing with one another as brothers and sisters. And we assume the responsibility to provide to others who are younger than us. And we can extend that to the universal family in which the Christs, Jesus and all the Christs, being older, the spirits, they assume the responsibility to guide us, to teach us, to provide to us, like Jesus being the leader of this planet, assume the parental-like responsibility to guide all of us. And in the same way, we eventually will assume the responsibility to provide to all who are less evolved and able to learn from us. Since we are so unevolved yet, the blood ties becomes very important, because at least inside of this household, I will assume the responsibility to provide to my children. Even if I am too ignorant to go outside of the household and provide to others. eventually in the pathway of progress. And a suggest of this great spiritist called Honorio, will you assume the responsibility to provide to all that we can provide outside of the blood kinship? Comments, questions?
Elmo,
Hi.
couple questions. Early on, you referenced a book, The Prophet,
Mhm.
and that was by who?
Khalil Gibran.
Go
It's
slow with that.
It's a beautiful book. It spells his the Kalil.
Okay, that's good. I know which one.
And the first name Gibran, Gibran, for others who might also be interested.
One of my questions is, why do you think that within the I'm just breaking it down because we were talking about the Ten Commandments. Why do you think that we have no commandment that says take care of your children or respect your children or anything like that? It's always for you to do, you honor thy father and mother. And also the idea that, that thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and adultery. It seems to be a lot on that, but not on the children.
It's a very interesting comment, very good question. I don't know if I have an answer. Why is that not a part of the commitment of the commandments? I would guess that we already have this instinctive, in general again, there's instinctive, almost no base animalistic tendency to honor our children, but honor in the meaning that I gave last week of assuming the responsibility of providing to honor the deal that you have made over there to receive them and try to provide to them to the best of our abilities. But now it's important to say to the best of our abilities. I keep going back and say, I can only give what I have. I can only teach what I know. And you'll see very often that we receive spirits as sons and daughters that already has a bag much filled than mine. They eventually will be teaching me. But so I think that to honor this commitment to provide to our children is so imbued within us that there was not a need to add it. But I would agree with you that since that a lot of us forget that, right? A lot of us should needed one of those commandments say, hey, your responsibility also here to honor your children, to respect your children, to respect the deal, to provide to them as well. But I think in general, it's already built in ourselves.
Yeah, your answer sounds sensible with the idea that in the animal world, the parent of an animal takes care of its newborn, rears it, and brings it to a point where it can sustain itself, typically, or gives it what it needs to give, and that's just built in, an innate aspect. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Although humans sometimes forget their innate instinct to protect their children.
Yeah, because the thing with the reason for thinking outpower the instinct. We can modify instinct somehow with reasoning, right? And if your reasoning is not properly educated, then we find all reasons to not fulfill our duty with our children, unfortunately. Instinct is extremely powerful and strong, and they are there for a reason. They are really there to support survivor, right? And that's why, especially towards offspring and especially towards children, babies of humans who's absolutely dependent, 100% dependent on parents. If you didn't have that strong instinct, maternal, paternal, to protect, to provide for those kids, our race would not last too long at all because we are completely dependent as newborns, 100% dependent. The necessity to form that that nucleus of family in which now parents will not, like, each one move in their own direction, but stay together is specifically to provide that offspring who is so needy that one is not really enough. And talking about on our chronological progress as human. But I think it's a very good comment. Why not? Because putting there their left commitment, don't forget your responsibility toward your children as well. Okay, anyone else? Let's see the chat over here.
Number 9.
Okay. Oh,
Yes?
thanks, John, for putting the name Khalid Gibran there. Yeah, number 9.
Okay. Children's ingratitude and family ties. Ingratitude is one of the most immediate fruits of selfishness. It is always revolting to honest hearts, but the ingratitude of children toward their parents has an even more odious character. It is particularly from this point of view that we will look at ingratitude in order to analyze its causes and effects. In this case, as in all others, Spiritism has come to shed light on one of the problems of the human heart. When the spirit leaves the earth behind, it takes with it the passions or virtues inherited to its nature and goes into the spirit world either to perfect itself or to remain at a standstill until it desires to see the light. Some, therefore, depart carrying with them great hatred and insatiable desires for vengeance. But a few of these, more advanced than the others, are allowed to glimpse a bit of the truth. They realize the disastrous effects of their passions and then resolve to do better. They understand that in order to reach God, there is one password only: charity. However, there can be no charity without forgetting offenses and wrongs. Neither can there be charity with hatred in the heart and without forgiveness. Next, through an unprecedented effort, these spirits look at those they detested while on earth, but at such a sight, their animosity reawakens. They rebel against the idea of forgiveness and even more against self-denial, especially when it means loving those
Who perhaps destroy their fortune.
loving those who perhaps destroyed their fortune, honor, or family. In spite of this, however, the heart of these unfortunate spirits is shaken. They hesitate and waver, troubled by their conflicting sentiments. If the resolution to do better wins, they pray to God and employ good spirits to give them strength at the most decisive moment of trial.
Thanks.
Okay.
It's a long passage. As I read this before, I had a really hard time on when to stop because it's such a long sequence of everything follows such a chronological pathway over here, but it's a longer reading also. And I fear that I myself going to lose a lot of points that I find important to speak about here. So I'm going to make small stops along the way here because it's a long reading. So the topic of children's ingratitude and family ties is a very difficult one to deal with. We all have families. We are all offspring, sons and daughters. We may not be parents, but we are all offspring, so all sons and daughters. And we may look at ourselves and if we are normal, we recognize that we had this problem with ingratitude because we are not perfect. I challenge anyone to tell over here that I have been a perfect son, a perfect daughter, that I have never had any moment or any sentiment of ingratitude towards my parents. Then we are at least a lot better than I am. And some of us, our parents, they may have felt in one moment or another some ingratitude from our offspring towards us, which again is absolutely normal because they are not perfect, just like you're not perfect. So this is something that may touch us in a very personal way. But again, we have to look at this in a very objective way and seeing ourselves at the stern spirit. Again, it's always important to go back to foundation and to honor that foundations regardless. If we're here having a discussion now, it's because at one point, two individuals provide us opportunity to be here. And that's a big, strong foundation in itself. And you must honor that regardless. And in general, again, always in average, parents will do their best for the kids. And again, always can remind that we can only give what we have. We can only teach what we know. But in general, parents will teach all that they know and will provide all that they can. And that needs to be honored. That needs to be recognized and regarded at a very high level by the offspring to receive all that parents could give. So an ingratitude from parents, from offsprings towards the parents is something very, very difficult to be accepted. It happens all the time. We are ready, perhaps even ourselves have a guilt of this. But it may reach levels that Kardec puts over here a very strong word. It's odious, It's always revolting to honest hearts. But the ingratitude of children towards the parent has an even more odious character. It's a very, very strong word here. Something that we should strive to never have. Odious feelings towards anyone or anything. And how to understand this thing, how to grasp, how to be, if not comfortable with this issue of ingratitude of children, at least how to make some sense of it. And Spiritism brings a big light on this issue to us. It's important to remember that always that once you leave this physical body, we don't become saints. We don't hold the sun. When we lose this physical body, we become enlightened, illuminated. On the contrary, keep to be what we are. And if I leave this world today filled with hate, filled with anger, and that's the way I'm gonna find myself in the spiritual world. And I take with me all my passions, all my virtues. That is mine. And I'm gonna have to do the work to get myself free of it. So it says over here, some therefore depart carrying with them great hatred and insatiable desire for revenge. But a few of these more advanced than others, are allowed to a glimpse of a bit of the truth. They realize the disasters, effects of their passions, and then resolve to do better. They understand that in order to reach God, there is only one password only: charity. So once I leave this world over here, once we leave this world over here, bring all our passions, all our vices, we will have an opportunity to reveal um, this reincarnation. We will have the opportunity to see what we have done good, what we have done not so good, the things that we really need to improve, relationships that we need to reestablish, and we will seek opportunities to do so. And very often, this opportunity is given to us to unite ourselves in a way that to those that I was hateful, to those that I have done wrong, I may have the opportunity to reunite in order to fix that relationship, to repair the mistakes that I have made. That even though I do carry that anger, I do carry that hate, I do carry that antipathy towards those individuals, I do recognize in the spiritual world, free from the flesh, free from the limitation of this physical body, with the assistance of the benevolent spirits with us, I can see that this is not a good thing. This does me no good. I want to change these things inside of me. I want to free myself from this revolt. I want to free myself from this anger to this hate towards A and B and C or whatever. And we seek opportunities. And very often those opportunities are place those individuals together in a in a family tie, in a blood union, to give us the best possible opportunity of resolving those issues, of transforming that hate into love, which is our destiny, so to say, right? It's the only thing that we know that we're gonna have to pay taxes, this physical body gonna die, that eventually we're gonna be perfected through our own work. And we do our own work here. As an example, I have right now a patient in our system is young kid, 26 years old, who claims to smoke 5 packs of cigarettes a day. Again, he claims to smoke 5 packs a day. I mean, that's 100 cigarettes a day. The day has 24 hours. If you don't speak, if you only sleep for 4 hours a day, you are smoking 100 cigarettes in 20 hours. And if you take another, at least 1 hour between meals and shower, you're smoking 100 cigarettes in 19 hours. It sounds incomprehensible. Yeah, and it sounds not possible. And he's been in the hospital for some 10 days with us now, not smoking. And he claims that he's not go back to smoke anymore. And inside over there, speaking with us, everybody advising, doing the proper things, don't go back to it. It's 10 days already. You are physically free from it. If you don't want to go back, you don't have to go back. And he's there, yeah, that's it. I'm done with cigarettes. And it's not really in that environment when he's being supported to be free of that vice, when he's being motivated to not go back into that behavior, where he does not have access to tobacco, where no one is offering him a cigarette. He is pretty much sure that no, he's done with it. But we know very well that the challenge of being really free from that vice is when he goes back home. When he goes back to all the triggers, to everything that leads him to smoke 5 packs a day, it's out there. Is he really free of that vice? Is he really free of not lighting another cigarette again? And if he does light another cigarette again, I don't know, 10 days after he's already discharged from the hospital and back to his normal life, you say, oof, I dropped the ball, I smoked a cigarette, but I'm not going to smoke another one. Would he be able to do that? Would he be able to maintain that commitment? It's a challenge. And that is just one example, it's just one physical vice, cigarette smoking, which can be analyzed in many different ways in psychology, why people smoke, and there are many reasons. Not for someone who smoke 5 packs a day, there's a lot of problems beyond the smoking itself. All right. So we can place that now to us, the eternal spirit in the spiritual world, revisit how this past reincarnation and see all the wrongdoings, all the mistakes that you have made, all the vices that we carry as a eternal spirit, there in association with our protecting spirit, our guardian angels, loved one, family one, giving us support in preparation for this new incarnation and make the commitment. Yeah, I want to go back. I know I had a lot of problem with such and such. If such and such will receive me now as a father or as a mother, or I will go back and then I will open my heart and myself to receive such and such now as my son, as my daughter, and I will fill that son and daughter with love. I'll give everything that I have to better guide this individual and turn our relationship that was so sour in the past in something of love, of peace. In that environment, being supported by our guardian angels and seeing that necessity, seeing that reality, we reincarnate here full of hope and full of energy to go along with that plan. Can we fulfill it? Can we do it? When we come here and now we are face to face with that person to which we've been banging heads, perhaps even more than one reincarnation, perhaps multiple reincarnations, it's very likely and possible to be happening. When that person that was now my mother or my father or my daughter, or my son, shows a degree of disrespect, shows a degree of disliking, goes against what I'm telling, and will that reignite all my hate? Will that bring back all that ill sentiments that I have towards that individual? And if it does, one little time, just like the guy may light a cigarette and he'll say, nope, I don't want to do this again. That was a mistake. I smoked the cigarette, but I'm not going to light another one. Or you say, yeah, that's what I am. I am this person who was like this and I don't like this person, I will completely forget my commitment. It's a challenge. And how do you resolve that? How do you go about it? You need support. And that's the great necessity still in our days to have some kind of things that bring us back to those commitments. Things like what we're doing here right now. That's perhaps that's a necessity of having religions, although I don't like religions, but perhaps it's good for a lot of people to be able to go back to review those commitments, even if on a very subconscious level, that we need, that we are here to transform those antipathies into sympathies, those hates into love. It is a tremendous challenge. And that is the basis that we see perhaps these days of parents not fulfilling their commitment and of ingratitude of children towards the parents. The topic is children towards the parents, but it could be two ways, right? You go and proceed with the topic present was the ingratitude of children towards the parents. So the foundations of the genesis of the Spiritism teach to us. It's not uncommon that, and there have been books written about that, not Spiritist books, of parents being very truthful, because it's something that we will hide, to receive an offspring, to receive a son or a daughter, and then look at that babe, look at that child and say, there is something about this kid that gives me a little bad feeling. That it's not a completely love here, although I love because it's mine, so to say, but there's something over here that is off. That is sometimes I feel like doing something that I should not be doing, saying something that I should not be saying. Most of us will experience that. Okay, and vice versa. There may be children that will follow the social, cultural guidance of the society that we live in and honor and respect for them, but have that inside of themselves, that strange thing towards those parents, that it's not all love, that what's no good. There's something that they don't know what it is, they can't put their fingers on it, but there is that little antipathy. Where does it come from? If not from previous experiences, of previous relationships. Spiritism bring us the light, it teaches us that. And the word charity is extremely important, because charity is what? It's not the giving of alms. It's the benevolence, the indulgence, the forgiveness. They all three things together making one single thing, charity. And that is the only password, this principle of the benevolence, to give of ourselves, the indulgence, to be indulgence, to be understanding of the difficulties of that parents, the difficulty of that sibling, to understand the limitations that we have, that my parents are not perfect. My parents may come from very bad experience themselves, may carry the scars of their own relationship with their own fathers and mothers, and I need to be indulgent towards that, to be forgiven of the mishaps that happens in a family tie, to be forgiven that the neighbor's parents are much better than ours, because it's always the case, right? The grass is always greener in the neighbor's yard. But when you go inside right there, you'll see that's pretty much the same. It's not all that bad, but that's how we see it as our perception. To be forgiven, that at least I feel like they did not give everything they could. They did not teach me everything they could, that they teach me something wrong or whatever the case may be. But to be forgiven of this, the benevolence, the indulgence, the forgiveness, all three things together, that is charity. Can we fulfill that duty, come in and be able to be like that towards our parents? And if not, at least do not act on it, because it's when you act on it, is when you act those sentiments that you created the ingratitude. If we're able to support the mistakes of the parents, even if we're not able to forgive them for committing those mistakes, but you do not give back, you do not act on your revolt, you are able to make a great stride of transforming that relationship eventually into what is desired, what was the plan in that reincarnation. Questions, comments?
Elmo, may I ask a question?
Please.
This is Carol. Yes, supposing the mother and father or stepfather and mother are in spirit, what is the best way to honor them and not to be a burden on them from our plane of existence? Thank you, Elmo.
That's a great question, and it brings two things important here. One, by parents who have to extend the biological parents of those who assume the responsibility of being parents, right? So you said step parents over there. That's a very good point. And some of those parents are no longer in the flesh anymore. They may be in the spiritual world. It is absolutely the same way. There is absolutely no change whatsoever. Will have the charity sentiment of being benevolent to them without a physical body, meaning that I'll give what I have to you, for I honor you and I respect you. So I will pray for you at this moment. I'll pray that you'll be surrounded by loved ones. I'll pray that you are having the opportunity to learn, to progress, to review this previous incarnation and have all the opportunities to make whatever repair it's necessary. I'll pray that you are able to reunite with loved ones who are there to support you. So you're giving what you have to give. If my partner in the spiritual world, what I can provide to them is my prayers, my real sentiments of well-being towards them, to them, in speaking with them, perhaps asking for forgiveness for my ingratitudes as son, that not being recognized their great value while together, but I do recognize it now. To be indulgent, because understand they are not perfect, that they perhaps have a mistake, that they carry the scars of their own past, of their own relationships. To be indulgent that they didn't have everything to give me, but they gave me what they could. And more rare case, to be forgiven if we understand that they have committed any mistakes and let them know, hey, it's all good, at least with me, you don't have to worry about. There is no more ill sentiment. Whatever is done is done. Even if I do not forget, I do forgive. You have no worries with me anymore. If you are there stressing yourself with your debits, be sure that with me you have no more debits. We are all good. I leave behind anything that happens and I want to stress a love relationship for here and for and in the beyond. That's the way we could do for them.
Thank you very much, Elmo. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. But that's a very good point. One, let's remember that when you talk about parents, in general, it's biological, but it extends to those who have assumed the responsibility. And perhaps those that are even greater merit because they took something that they did not create from their own physical body and assumed the responsibility. They provide what they could provide. And in general, it's good. Of course, everybody will be able to remember examples that of abuses and things that unfortunately happened. But we're gonna take in the average, and the average usually parents will do the best to help, giving whatever they have to give. Any more comments, questions? We can continue, finally.
Okay. Finally, after years of meditation and prayer, the spirit profits from the use of a body that is to be born in the family of the one it used to hate, and it asks the spirits designated to transmit the divine orders to be allowed to fulfill on the earth the destiny of that body that is about to be formed. So, how will it behave as a member of this family? That will depend on the degree of persistence of its resolution to do better. The constant contact with individuals it used to hate is a terrible trial to which it succumbs sometimes if its will is not sufficiently strong. Thus, depending on whether it's good or bad resolution prevails, it will either be a friend or enemy of those among whom it has been called upon to live. This is how one can explain those hatreds, those instinctive repulsions that may be observed in certain children which no previous act seems to justify. In fact, there is nothing in the present existence that can have caused such antipathy. In order to understand it, one must look to the past. O Spiritist, you must understand humankind's grand role. You must understand that when you produce a body, the soul who incarnates in it has come from the spirit world in order to progress. Know your duties and put all your love in leading that soul to God. This is the mission that has been entrusted to you and from which you will receive recompense if you faithfully fulfill it. The care and education you give it will help in its self-improvement and future well-being. Remember that God will ask every father and every mother, what did you do for the children whom I entrusted into your care? If because of your fault they have remained behind, your punishment will be to see them among the suffering spirits. That could have,
When it depended,
when it depended on you for them to be happy. Hence, you yourselves, tormented by remorse, will ask to repair your wrong. You will ask for yourselves and for them another incarnation in which you will surround them with more enlightened care and full of gratitude. They will surround you with their love. Therefore, do not rebuff the little child who spurns its mother, nor the one who repays you with ingratitude. It was no accident that it made it that way and gave it to you. An imperfect intuition about the past is being revealed, from which you may deduce that one or the other of you has hated much or has been greatly offended, and that one or the other has come to forgive or to expiate. Mothers, embrace, therefore, the child who causes you trouble and say to yourself, One of us was blameworthy. Make yourselves deserve the divine joys that God has bestowed upon motherhood by teaching your children that they are on the earth to improve themselves, to love and to bless. But alas, many of you, instead of using education to drive away the innate evil tendencies brought over from previous lifetimes, maintain and increase them because of a blameworthy weakness or because of negligence. And later on, your heart, ulcerated by ingratitude of your children, will be for you, starting in this life and beginning of your expiation. The task is not difficult as you might think, however. It does not require the wisdom of the world. The uneducated as well as the learned can fulfill it, and Spiritism has come to facilitate it by making known the cause of the imperfections of the human heart. From infancy, children manifest the good or evil instincts they have brought from their previous existence, and it is necessary that we apply ourselves to studying them. All evils have their
Origin,
origin,
selfishness.
selfishness, and pride. So watch out for the least signs that reveal the seeds of these vices, and take care to combat them without waiting for them to put down deeper roots. Do as the gardeners, who cut off the defective shoots as soon as they appear on the tree. If selfishness and pride are allowed to develop, do not be surprised if you are paid back later with ingratitude. When parents have done everything they should for their children's moral advancement, but are unsuccessful nonetheless, they have nothing to reproach themselves for, and their conscience can rest easy. But as for the very natural headache they feel from the failure of their efforts, God reserves a great, immense consolation, that the certainty that it is only a delay and that it will be given to them to achieve in another existence the work they began in this one, and that someday their ungrateful children will repay them with love. God never imposes trials beyond the
Oh,
strength.
so thanks.
Okay.
I'm strong. So I think most of this passage we have already talked about. So we make that commitment, just like our patient now have commitment to not go back to smoking again after smoking 5 packs a day. That commitment, that desire is real, it's truthful, it's not faking, it's not pretending. Can we really do it? Will we really be able to do it? When I revisit myself, my life, my previous existence in the spiritual world, when I sit in front of a screen and that screen shows all my bads, all my wrongs, the way I misbehaved, the way I made others suffer, and it really hurts me. Um, they say, the spirit says, I've been revealed, that the worst pain of the spirit is that recognition, is when we see that we wasted the opportunity given to us, when we see that we had all the opportunities to transform something from bad to good, and we go back to spiritual world and see that instead of doing that, we exacerbate the bad instead of transforming to good. That is one of the worst pains that the spirit suffers, so much so that Euripides Parsinufo is being reported he opened a hospital to receive spiritists in the spiritual world, because we have so much opportunity to learn so much, we know so much with this doctrine, that when we go back, we feel really bad for the wasted opportunities, for everything that I had received here. And Kardec states over here, we make that commitment. Gonna go back, gonna be reunite with those to whom I had some issues to resolve, relationships to improve. Gonna devote myself to my parents. I give them, gonna give all the love and respect that they need. Will I do it? Knowing that the parents is the ones to whom I had so much, such a hated relationship. Because actually, that will depend on the degree of persistence of its resolution to do better. And that's why I make point to say that in order that individual to stop smoking from 5 packs a day to nothing, it's very likely that in that period of freeing himself, truly freeing himself of the vice, he will have lapses. You pick up cigarette here and there, but you have the commitment to say, oof, I dropped the ball, but it's okay. I'm not perfect. I'm not gonna smoke again. Drop the cigarette, I'm gonna throw it, and not gonna smoke again. And perhaps a few months later, something happens and he drops the ball again and it lights up another cigarette. But at least it's been between weeks, between months that he's lighting a cigarette. It's not 5 packs a day any longer. Eventually, you'll be able to do it completely, no longer light a cigarette again. The same thing with us. When we reincarnate, and now you see, and I'm always going from now on, going from us being the offsprings in relationship to our parents. Okay. When I see that individual now that I have that subconscious understand that our relationships is in the past of hate, of dislike one another, will I have the persistence of this commitment? Will I really have this constant awareness that I have to make it better? That eventually I'm gonna show a little bit lapses of my still ill sentiment towards them. But when it happens, I'm gonna cut it short, let it go, and I'm gonna continue in this persistent commitment of making it better, but my resolution to do better. Now it really enters the parents' sphere. Will the parents support me in this commitment? Will those that to whom I have a hating relationship in the past, who had made the commitment, who have accepted me now that we haven't banged heads for so long and now, will they support me in this path of transforming that relationship into love, or they will go along with the rated relationship that was ignited by that child for one misbehavior, for disrespect, for something else? Or will these parents also honor the commitment to modify that the sentiments of that child? And it's important when he says over here that God will eventually ask us, what did you do for the children whom I trust into your care? If because of your fault we have remained behind, they have remained behind, I'm sorry, your punishment will be to see them among the suffering spirits when it dependent on you for them to be happy. So regardless of our relationship of the past, regardless the fact that we're being banging heads and being hateful towards one another, now in the spiritual world, I understand the wrong of it. I understand the need to modify myself. I've made the commitment now to receive that child, that spirit as a child, with the duty, the beginning says over the duty, to help them to progress morally and intellectually, not to the best of our abilities. And eventually God, which of course over here, the divine laws imprinted in our conscience. That's the way you should read the word God over here. The divine laws imprinted in our conscience. You're going to ask from us. You made a deal, shook hand, accepted this, to receive that individual to with a duty of helping them to free themselves of those vices. What I have done with this opportunity. And if I did waste that opportunity, now I'm gonna see that child, that spirit that I have somehow learned to love. Because with parenthood does that, right? That instinctive, we just speak that instinctive think of giving love to our children. Childhood create that on us, but I not fulfill my duty. Now that spirit is back in the spiritual world, back in the lower zones, suffering, and you feel that extremely painful repent of having wasted that opportunity. And again, inside in the spiritual world, one of the great suffering is exactly that. To look back and see all the wasted opportunities. And then you ask for another opportunity. And then you ask to be able to retrieve that spirit from that lower zone. And very often the only way to retrieve that spirit from the lower zone, because you can't over that take the one who belongs there because of its conscience, because of its mentality, the way it thinks, the way it feels. You cannot take that spirit from there, from the lower zone, and bring to a higher level. The only way will be through another reincarnation. That spirit will have to come from the lower zone when it's suffering, we're associated with spirits that thinks and act like that spirit to a new reincarnation. And you ask, let us go back. Let us be united again in the physical, in the flesh, so I can now do what I have done before. And as we always say, to redo something is always more difficult than do it right on the first time. Now, if you're gonna build your house and then the people from the inspection sees that there is a problem in the foundation, and you're now gonna have to destroy and build again. It's 3 times the work of building it right the first time. You're gonna have to break down things, gonna have to remove all the garbage, gonna have to clean the whole area again and put another house in there, as you have done right at the first time. With the hardship it is to build it, it's much easier than to rebuild, than break down and build it again. So on a next reincarnation with those that you have hated in the past, that now perhaps hate you even more, even though you have made the commitment, did not fulfill it, it becomes more and more difficult. But the opportunity is given, always, because if we have to free ourselves from our vices, from our hates, we need those opportunities. So Kardec puts here, therefore, do not rebuff the little child who spurns its mother, nor the one who repays you with ingratitude. It was no accident that it made it that way and gave it to you. An imperfect intuition about the past is being revealed. I think this is an imperfect intuition of the past is being revealed. We're gonna have this little lapses that leads us to recognize that there is something with my parents that it's not so, I'm not so sympathetic towards. There is something that creates a little separation over here that's not all loving. Even though they are being good to me, even though that they're giving the best that they can give me, even though I feel that they send me love, something about me I cannot send back the same love. What is it? It's exactly an imperfect intuition about the past that's being revealed, from which you may deduce that one or the other of you has hated much or has been greatly offended, and that one or the other has come to forgive or to expiate. The interesting says, one of us was blameworthy. I think that it's important that you do not seek to understand, but to understand that if it is a, sorry, I'm just everything here. Avery, quiet. Sorry. That one of us has dropped the ball. It doesn't matter who, but there is the necessity of both to make reparations, of both to strive to make it right. Going back, try to go back and see why that is, we want only complicate the situation. If today I'm the best in the pathway of progress, today I'm the best that I ever been, I don't want to look what's back there, because it's going to be really, really ugly. And if in a very honest evaluation of myself in relationship towards my parents, in relationship towards my offsprings, I am honest enough to say that there is that little antipathy towards A or B. There is something that is not 100% all love towards A or B. It's because there has to be a cause. And if this cause is not in this present relationship, in this present life, then it's from the past. And going back to look what is bad may just reignite something that should be left behind. As Chico Xavier says, that we are like a lake, right? Then when it's calm waters, no wind, it's beautiful, transparent, translucent water, but the bottom there, it's filled with mud. It's filled with decayed leaves and stuff. That doesn't take much. A little wind or a step on that bottom to lift up all that dirty, and that crystalline, beautiful water become all muddy and all messed up. And we should try to live our lives and not to disrupt the bottom of that lake. So we can have the waters always clean, translucent, transparent for us. So trying to go back and see why we have this little problem there will only create more problems. In very, very, very rare situations, to revisit that past in this therapy of regression may be useful, but in general, developed forgetfulness is a blessing that we should just leave it behind and move forward, understanding that if there is that real sentiment, it's because of something bad in the past. And I want to live in the past and move on, creating love, period. I love when it gives a glimpse of hope, because we speak here of negative stuff, right? And hate of the past and things that say, this is so negative, it's so depressing, so to say. But look at that come and say the task is not as difficult as you might think. However, it does not require the wisdom of the world. The uneducated, as well as the learned, can fulfill it, and the Spirit comes to facilitate it by making known the causes of the imperfection of the human heart. The divine laws God, will not place on our shoulder a weight that we cannot carry. They will not give us a task that we cannot fulfill. May not be easy, may not be a walk in the park, but it's doable. And even more than that, because that says over here, it's not as difficult as you might think. Or perhaps we make things a lot worse than it should be. Perhaps we create so much more barriers in establishing a loving relationship that it needed to be. If you just trust a little bit more, if you just have that understanding that, yeah, if there's a problem here, it's because it's not from present life, it's from previous life, but I'm going to leave it all behind. And I'm going to move forward, doing my best to give what I have, benevolence, to be indulgent, and to be forgiven, charity. And again, we come to the two cancers that corrupt all those plans that we have for them. What is it that we made a commitment? We understand, we truly understand the commitment, the need of making that change, of transform that hateful relationship into a loving relationship. And no better opportunity to do that as in a blood family tie. Why do we still fail? Even beyond the instinct, the maternal paternal instinct, we still may fail. The true obnoxious cancer that corrupts us, that corrupts all the plans, pride and selfishness. All evils have the orange and selfishness and pride, says Kardec here. So watch out for the least signs that reveal the seeds of these vices and take care to combat them without waiting for them to put down deeper roots. As parents, we should be very vigilant in our duty to educate those that being placed to us to educate, to be very careful, very vigilant, that anytime that you see that selfishness, that pride, that you combat it, that you re-educate, that you redirect, especially the first 7 years, as always remember here, when the child is the most malleable, that you can better redirect sentiments and thoughts. If any time that you see that child showing their selfishness, their pride, we assume the duty of redirect, to educate or re-educate. And then he says over here, if selfishness and pride are allowed to develop, do not be surprised if you are paid back later with ingratitude. There is a tendency to give back what you receive. There is a tendency, unfortunately, for most of us, to be like a dumb, stupid wall that you throw a ball at that well, it will bounce back with the same strength that we send it, right? Most of us are not able to go beyond being a wall and being someone who will receive it, will analyze, will remove what's not good, and only give you back what's good. So very often we only receive if you do not educate, if you do not properly transform that child in someone who was able to filter everything and only give you back what's good, will you give back what's bad as well? And very often that will means the ingratitude that I receive very often of offspring towards parents. The necessity to educate our children is even of kind of defense mechanism. Is helping yourself. That if only give good, and if those children are like walls, they give back with the same strength. When they give you back, they'll be only good because they only received good. But if I did not mold that child to give only good, then they'll give what they received. And we send vibrations that are negative, those negative vibrations are going to bounce back towards us eventually. So in a way, to educate ourselves works in our favor is self-defense. It will prevent the ingratitude of children towards us. Does it may happen that this ingratitude may happen even if we do only the right, it may happen. But then it's not with you anymore. You've done it right, and you'll be rewarded for the right you have done. And those who have not able to re-educate oneself, even with all the assistance that you provided, we have to deal with the consequence of his or her decisions. I lose track of time very often. We passed time. We're going to stop here. We passed the time already, right? Okay, any comments? Carol, can you make a final prayer for us?
Sure. Thank you very much, Elmo. That was great. Very, very well presented, and everyone as well. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we are grateful today to be together for our studies of the Gospel according to Spiritism. We are grateful for this chapter, Corporeal Kinship and Spirit Kinship, learning much more about these topics. We have learned that the spirit comes from the spirit. The body comes from the body. Parents do not create the spirit of their children. Parents furnish the body or physical vehicle to support a child's moral and intellectual development. True family ties are not blood ties, and as we are evolving and we learn to care and love, we expand this love to the human family, much broader based family. We can offer charity and sentiment through our prayers to those who are in spirit, especially the step parents and parents. We can send our love, our prayers, our sentiments of well-being, and we can also ask for their forgiveness, indulgence, and benevolence. We are grateful to be together today and to receive the guidance of the spiritual benefactors, the helpers, the healers, the loved ones, the guardian angels who are with us, guiding us and helping us to move forward in our understanding of these topics. May we go forward this week with our prayers, with our studies, with our mindfulness, knowing that we are never alone, that there is always a way forward as we ask and as we do our part. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, doing our best each and every day to be supportive of others, ourselves, those who are in greater need, those who need healing, those who need support, those who need an open ear to hear their their troubles or their challenges. May we do our best, and may we keep our hearts and minds open to the peace, love, and light of Christ within. As we close this meeting today, may we go forward as beacons of light, as beings who have the depth of heart, who have a greater understanding in this incarnation. May we give thanks to our teachers, those who are guiding us, those who are in SGNY. May we continue to be supportive and to continue to unify our family at SGNY. May we close now and go forth in safety and protection. Go forth now in peace and gratitude, so be it. Thank you